Welcome to the Interfaith Action for Peace, IFAP. This is the IFAP Forum, episode 14. The Interfaith Action for Peace, IFAP, is working to build capacities for the spiritual, economic, academic, and cultural enhancement of society and the peaceful coexistence of religious groups in Nigeria. Today we'll be discussing the topic, role for places of worship in interfaith relationship building. We have with us in the studio today two highly esteemed guests, namely Dr. Paddy Kemdi Njoku of the Chartered Institute of Mediators and Conciliators, as well as an animator of the Justice, Development and Peace Commission of the Church of the Assumption, Asokoro. We also have with us Ustaz Abubakar Sadeeq Muhammed, whom we call Deedat, of the Muslim Consultative Forum. My name is Abdul Hakim Ajijola. Welcome to the Interfaith Action for Peace IFAP Forum. Let me start by asking Dr. Njoku, what roles have places of worship played in interfaith relationship building?
Well, Mr. Ajijola, you're tackling me because there's a question that has been boiling in my mind, which I'll settle with Ustaz later.
Oh, okay.
And that question is God Allah?
Okay.
And is Allah God?
Yes.
And if yes, why can't I go into a mosque as a Christian to worship God and allow Ustaz come into my church to worship Allah?
Okay.
And I think we should be trying to go towards educating our people that whether you call somebody Papa or Baba or Na, he is your father.
Yes.
He is your father. In Spanish they say Pepito, in French they say Père, in English they say father, in Yoruba they say Baba, in Igbo they say Na, but all of us all they are talking about is one person, and that is Father. So if we're talking about God, and that is Allah, I think that we shouldn't say, look, because you're not a Christian, don't enter my church to worship your Allah. And I should not enter your mosque to worship my God, because you are coming there to talk to your Father, who is only one, that created the universe, that created you and me, gave us different languages and different modes of talking to him,
so
and vice versa.
I'm going to pose this question to the Ustaz in a moment.
Very good.
But let me start with you. Can a Muslim go and worship in a church?
Well, as Jesus used to answer, he said, thy own mouth has said it. Right Honorable Tambuwal went and worshipped, that is beautiful worship, in a church in Bayelsa State, and even preached to the congregation, and everybody applauded him. A Muslim should be able to worship. That's freedom of worship. There's no restriction of place of worship. As long as there's freedom of worship, there should be freedom of place of worship, which means in fact, when you enter a church, you don't know how the man who's praying next to you quietly is praying. He might be praying in Arabic to Allah, and the other man might be praying in Hebrew.
Well, after all, there are Christians who are Arabs.
Exactly, there are Christians who are Arabs and vice versa. But what I'm saying is that we shouldn't, as much as possible, be creating more and more restrictions if we understand that we are talking to one creator of the universe.
Well, Ustaz,
yes. Yeah, I think this is important. In answer to your question, he has brought in more questions. That, yes, of course. And I think it is interesting because I think the purpose of this program is dialogue and the use of the places of worship. Let us understand from the onset that by dialogue, it doesn't mean I have to agree 100% with what any other person will say. It's not a contest where you get marks and so on. So the purpose of dialogue is mutual understanding and respect. I should be able to listen to the other person and to understand his point very well. After the conquest of Jerusalem, Umar ibn al-Khattab was asked to offer prayers in the church, he would have done that. That means it's not disallowed. But he said, a very good reason, he said, if I prayed here, I'm afraid some people may say, since Umar has prayed here, this place has to be a mosque and not a church. He would have. Now, authorities have it that when the Christian delegation of Najran came to Medina to the Prophet's mosque, he housed them in his mosque, and when it was time for them to do their prayers, their Christian prayers, they asked him whether they could pray in his mosque, and he said, go ahead, why not?
So there's a precedent?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Okay.
Of course.
So this was before Tambua?
No, even before. But, yeah. The only thing that I need to emphasize is this. Let us recognize the difference of our faiths. Listen to the other person. Accord him some respect. I expect when I discuss with a Christian to say that he believes in the Trinity. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. I, as a Muslim, do not believe in that, but I should look at that, respect that, listen to him, appreciate the fact that that is what he believes in. It is not necessary for me to so believe, but I should respect him.
So we respect our differences.
Yes. So where we go to worship, it doesn't mean there is no difference. I'm sure the doctor is not trying to dissolve Islam and Christianity to be one thing, so that mosque is church and church is mosque. He means that mutual understanding and respect that we accord each other would enable us to say, in case he has anything to do in the church, I should come and talk to his congregation, or I should come and see what they do. That is exactly what we do. Even here at the National Mosque, Abuja, where you have Christians coming as a group, a delegation, study group, anything, they are invited, they are welcome into the mosque, and they are taken round the mosque, and they see what we are doing. I'm sure that is what he has in mind. But where a Christian says, God is my Father, if he means by that my Creator, my Maker, in that general sense, it's okay.
My Master.
My Master. But if he means that God begets a son, a Muslim respects that from the Christian, but he does not accept.
So the Christian does have a right to his or her perspective.
Yes.
This is important.
Yeah. And when I read the verse, I said God and I said Allah. It's one and the same thing. Doctor.
No,
Doctor, you're a bit skeptical.
No. I'm admiring, what he said. He says he read my mind, so he's a good mind reader. He's a good mind reader. But yes.
May I really go back to the issue of what roles have places of worship played in interfaith building? Not just this immediate effort, but I would say in the history of Christianity and later for you in the history of Islam. What roles have these places played?
Unfortunately, they have played more in the past, more divisive roles than unifying roles. And that's why we are now making this effort at dialogue, understanding.
The institution or specific individuals within the institution?
The institutions hitherto have not been very much involved in dialogue, understanding differences, and appreciating them.
But I recollect the Pope has made some effort. Maybe it was the previous Pope.
Not only making an effort. Pope John Paul II went and worshipped in the mosque in Damascus in the year 2000.
Interesting.
So it's not just, and then of course the Pope, the papacy, the Vatican has a whole department of interreligious dialogue, which was headed by Archbishop Arinze, Francis Arinze. So I mean that has been going on for quite some time. But I'm saying that if we had made very much effort, and when I say we, I say all the religions,
our various faiths.
Yes, at interreligious dialogue, we would not have been where we are today.
Okay.
Of course, the reason why we are here now talking is that if this problem had been solved before now, Ustaz and I and you would not be sitting here talking.
But so, Ustaz,
Yes.
Really, what roles have these places of worship played in interfaith?
I think I mentioned when I was answering Doctor on that question, that the mosque in Medina was a center of dialogue where Christian deputations were coming to the Messenger of Allah. He housed them in the mosque, and they were able to discuss faith and to understand themselves. But maybe if that could lead to the question of how we are faring today as far as interfaith dialogue is concerned, I think the mosque and the church is not doing much.
Given the current circumstances that we face today,
Yes.
Many have argued that the root causes are actually not interfaith problems, but actually more of problems of governance, resources, tribalism, and the like. So really this now comes to the question of what role can the mosque and the church play in building what are called interfaith relationships, so that faith is not necessarily a factor or a negative factor in the other negative challenges that we face. What can these institutions or establishments do?
Let me say, like in this month of Ramadan, I want to speak about noise pollution. Recently, the authorities in Saudi Arabia issued an edict that no mosque is allowed to use its loudspeakers outside the
presence.
the inner chamber of the mosque. This is Saudi Arabia.
Interesting.
Yes, in Riyadh in particular, that this Ramadan no mosque is allowed to do that. If this will happen in Riyadh, just think of your immediate community. When I moved from one place of Abuja to another, my house is now in between two churches. And whoever came to that place would say, how are you going to live here with two churches around you? What are they referring to? Noise pollution. And let me seize this opportunity to apologize on behalf of the Muslims, that is to the Christian community, of the noise that is coming from the mosques, especially in Ramadan. So we should find a way of solving this problem. The night vigil, you see the loudspeakers from the churches will be blaring, and nobody sleeps. And also in Ramadan, you get the Taraweeh prayer, the Tahajjud also will come up. Even in Islam, not everybody comes to the mosque.
True.
Women who are in their period, they can't come to the mosque. They will not pray.
Or you might be in hospital.
Of course. So let us know. The early mosques, they had no loudspeakers. But yes, your point that the evolution, the numbers are increasing, and we need to hear what the imam is saying or the pastor is preaching. But the essence is to reach people. Of course, where the congregation is large and you have people even outside the mosque praying, then they need to hear what is being said. But to use it as if you're announcing something, I mean, it's all over the place, and nobody will have peace. Once you see a new structure coming up in your area, if it's a mosque you are worried, then there will be trouble. The loudspeakers will not, and if it's a church, it's the same thing. So why is it like that?
Well, Dr. Njoku, let me...
It's interesting that he raised this point, because I too live in a place where I have one mosque in front and one behind.
Okay.
There are two things that wake me up every morning. One is the
Call to prayer.
Yeah, the call to prayer very early in the morning from the one behind.
Yes.
And of course, there's a bird that always sings. I know that these two now make sure that once I hear them, I say, "Oh, it's them."
Yeah.
And the point you made is very important. At times when I handle public events and microphone goes off, I tell people that, look, Jesus preached the Sermon on the Mount without a microphone, so please listen to me.
Yes.
All through his ministry, he never used any microphone. And all through the ministries of these apostles, during the Acts of the Apostles, there were no microphones. So we should be able to appreciate the nuisance we are creating for the other man who does not even understand what we're talking about.
Of course.
But when you sing too loud to an ear and your music is not melodious, it becomes noise. And so if this could happen in Riyadh,
Yes.
the Nigerian authorities themselves should be able to take up the responsibility. I have asked my people, even the Christians, I said, is God deaf? What makes you think that he cannot understand and hear and understand you when you whisper to him?
Yes. Yes.
You don't shout at your superior.
Of course.
Huh? You humbly go and quietly. Huh?
Yeah. And
Pray.
But sir, this is a very emotive issue.
Yeah, yes.
And really, how do we? Because I've heard now a logic from Ustaz about something happening in Riyadh.
Yeah.
How do we also appeal to our brethren within that do the night vigils?
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. It's not just a question of appeal. There must be regulation. What he's talking about wasn't an appeal. There was a regulation from the authorities.
Okay.
And that's why we are saying there's too much laissez-faire in our system.
Okay.
Things must be regulated. There's nothing that God has left without regulation. That's why when it's nighttime, he stops the sun and said, go to wherever you came from. Let night come. And no night has gone beyond its limit for day not to come. Everything is regulated. Our authorities must start regulating these things. You can agree with me that's one of the things that one of the measures that was recommended by the people who were looking into the religious problems we are having. That you don't allow people just to get up to preach. How do you measure the sanity of the man who is even preaching? Whether he's preaching in Christianity or Islam. So things have to be regulated. For goodness sake.
So there needs to be standards.
Yes, there must be standards. Like we're talking about interreligious dialogue now. We can interreligiously come together with the government and say some of these things. In fact, the authorities of this country will be very happy to hear Ustaz, to know that, yes, that even at the main seat of this religion, it is regulated this way.
So we also appeal to the government to listen to these two wise gentlemen and I think consider some form of regulation. But I think also in the meantime, we have to be careful that not everything can be done by regulation. So I think we would appeal, I think, to our brethren across the faiths to, I think, be a little more sensitive to each other, and especially in terms of, well, what you have called noise pollution, but let's just say the challenges of noise.
Okay. Challenges of noise.
So really, let's break it down a little bit. For example, what challenges would you hand over, or how would you challenge, for example, the mosque or in your case, the church committees regarding how to make their places of worship, for lack of a better description, more visitor friendly, so that people would not feel as intimidated coming. So if I can start with you, sir.
Yes.
Dr. Njoku.
Thank you for starting with me. The church is a place for sinners. And I don't know whether you're a sinner just by looking at you now. So that means you are free to enter and worship.
Okay.
And that's why in our church, for example, when people complain, oh, this is great, I say, Christ said, come to me, all ye who are heavy laden.
And I shall give you
succor.
Yes.
You understand?
Okay.
So all sinners are welcome.
Okay.
And so you cannot be restrictive and be telling us that you are holding a church.
If anything, it's exclusive for sinners.
Exactly. In fact, sinners have the first class visa.
Okay.
So it should be visitor friendly as much as possible. Unfortunately, today we are having challenges, you know, that are making us look at people twice before they enter, you know, in certain quarters. But that is a challenge. It's one of the crosses we are now carrying.
Which we pray to overcome.
Yeah, which we pray to overcome, and which is why we're doing these things we're doing. It should, and I think the same thing should extend to our Muslim brothers to see how. In fact, if you want converts, you don't get more converts by shutting your door.
Yes. True. True.
You know, I say allow people come in, let them listen to what you're saying, and
if I may.
Interesting. In Bahrain, they have this Discover Islam. They have a program that they call Awareness Through Mosque Tours.
Interesting.
They train people from all over the world on how to be tour guides around mosques.
Okay.
What to explain, I mean, whoever is interested in knowing what the Muslims are doing when they go into the mosque, this is what they do and this is why they do it. So mosque committees around this country would do well to train people who would take them around the mosque. Now, whoever is coming to the mosque, given the sensitivities of some issues, would have to dress modestly. Of course, nobody would go into the church half naked. So the mosque also, be in that, and pass through the channel, like the imam or the committee of the mosque. If it's the national mosque, the executive secretary's office could handle that. We are coming with, just like Archbishop Onaikon did recently, with some students at the seminary. They wanted to come to the national mosque. It's part of their studies to see, they are studying part of Islam. And they came. Okay. Yes, and they came, they were taken round. This is how it should be. I support that, Doctor.
I'm happy to see that there is some consensus on this issue. There you have it, friends, colleagues, brothers, sisters. We're very grateful for these two remarkable resource persons. Dr. Njoku, thank you very much, of the Chartered Institute of Mediators and Conciliators. Ustaz Abubakar Sadeeq Muhammed, we are also very, very grateful. You're from the Muslim Consultative Forum. Thank you very much for your time and efforts. Viewers, join us in enjoying what is good and discouraging what is bad. Keep the faith, keep the peace, till we meet again.